Let me start with the Zionist ideology in 1948 and its relevance to what we see today. 1948 in many ways was a culmination of an ideological process which led to an articulation of a very clear formula, concept, which stated that there is no hope for a successful Zionist colonization of Palestine without the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. We know now from the historical evidence exactly who were the people who formulated these ideas, who were the ones who put forward in a very clear language, with a very clear thinking, the plan to expel by force as many Palestinians as possible from as much of Palestine as possible, to be able to commit a crime of this magnitude. It's not expelling one village, it's not destroying one town, it's not throwing out 100 people, 1,000 people from the houses. It is a decision to uproot a whole country. Very few politicians and generals in modern history and even in ancient history were that bold to believe that they are that powerful, that they can be that cruel to decide to take a whole country and depopulate it. We have to ask ourselves, how come Jews 3 years after the Holocaust could have been so callous, so determined in committing a crime of such a magnitude? The second point of view, or second aspect of 1948 which is relevant, is the international community's reaction to what happened in 1948. There was a conspiracy of silence. There were so many representatives of the international community on the ground. There were journalists, there were representatives of the United Nations, of the International Red Cross. There were people whose role and task and mission was to report to their relevant headquarters whether or not peace is being achieved in Palestine after the United Nations adopted the partition resolution on the 29th of November 1947. And they knew that instead of peace, from the 1st of February 1948, Jewish troops were going from one house to the other, from village to village, and were expelling by force people, massacring them when they resisted, and looting everything they had, from their material possessions to their cultural heritage, such as books, pictures, photographs, anything they had. Whether it was the headquarters of the International Cross in Geneva or the United Nations Secretariat in New York at the time, they all had received genuine reports of what was going on. And they made a political decision not to publish these reports. They made a very conscious decision not to portray the reality on the ground in Palestine, because it was because there was only one way of depicting it: a crime and an ethnic cleansing. And it doesn't matter whether they would have used the term ethnic cleansing or not. However they would have chosen to represent or summarize the information that they had received from the ground, there was only one simple story to tell. The Jewish forces, later on the Israeli forces, were systematically expelling the Palestinians from their homes, fields, and businesses. Nobody in the Western world wanted to report that story. It was suggested to them that so few years after the Holocaust, it's not a good idea to portray the Jews as murderers, expellers, looters, occupiers, and colonizers. This was a conscious decision by the political elites of the West to atone for what Europe did to the Jews in the Second World War. The price was very clear. the dispossession of Palestine. This was the price. It was a simple deal. Instead of facing the real victims, the real Jewish victims of the Nazi Holocaust, which was very difficult, it was much better to deal with the State of Israel instead. It's because the State of Israel wanted only one thing in return for the atonement of the political elites of the West and especially of Europe. It wanted the right to dispossess the Palestinians. And this right was granted.